right out of the gate, folks are just fired up about the quarterback situation, the real Hayden, about the lack of interest in the portal, and then Hawkeye Howard is extremely strong here.
Hawkeye Howard, we love our friend down in Springfield, Missouri.
Wow.
He doesn't mince words. Now, I understand people who are tired of, first of all, people have been saying fire Brian Ferentz for several years now, to be completely honest. But I understand why some fans would say they're tired of the Kirk Ferentz era. I'm not going to say that because I have lots of respect for Kirk Ferentz. They did just win 10 games and win the West outright. But people are tired of playing in the Citrus and the Outback Bowl. I mean, that's just, I don't think there's anything wrong with that comment that the real Hayden made at the beginning about how ridiculous it is that Iowa's, because I brought this up yesterday, and I'm not saying this is that I'm trademarking that statement, Mark, but I brought this up during our kind of a Hawkeye huddle, Hawkeye hangout is what I call it, over on the From the Hawkeye of the Storm channel. I think it's ridiculous that Iowa's never mentioned with any of these transfer portal quarterbacks. Like, regardless if Iowa's even contacting them, because that, that's just what I want. I just want to hear that Iowa's reaching out to somebody, acknowledging that this is what we need to do, or this is a possible solution. But they're not doing that. But the fact that these national writers, Mark, who, again, report on, and even if you want to call it speculation, like the report from the USC guy a few weeks ago, I can't remember his name, but reported that Keaton Slovis was being contacted by, Penn State, whatever it was, Penn State, Nebraska, Pittsburgh. I can't remember the three schools, but okay, that we heard that, and then we heard the schools that were reaching out to Bo Nix, Tyson Fumichan. I saw a writer for Rivals yesterday that, off the top of his head, named 4 or 5 schools potentially in the market for Caleb Williams. And I understand Caleb Williams is going to be a much sought after kid here for the next few weeks, but don't you think it's ridiculous? I mean, I know we just keep beating this dead horse, but the fact that we've established ourselves, Mark, the University of Iowa, the athletic department has established itself as not even a player. Like, people, it's not even that Iowa's not reaching out. It's that it's just assumed by the outside world, and rightfully so, it's assumed that Iowa's not going to take a quarterback, despite the fact they're one of the few Power 5 programs that desperately need one.
It is, it's curious. I'll say that. I'll be kind and say that, just because, yeah, the lack of production on the offensive side of the ball. We can dive into Spencer Petrus's play in the Citrus Bowl, but the quarterback play is marginal at best. And we're seeing programs across the nation that stockpile that position, that aren't satisfied, and they've got pretty good players and production in the passing game, and they're still out there going after quarterbacks.
That's exactly my point. That's exactly my point. Like, and you brought up the fact that Iowa did just win the West. They've got one of the best defenses in the country, one of the best special teams units in the country. It's going to be the same next year. And yet it's not even like it's a possibility. And when you bring it up, like if somebody, I've read through comments and threads about somebody, fans bring it up. Well, what about Iowa? People laugh at it. It's almost humorous to even think that Kirk Ferentz would do this. And I love Kirk, and he's stuck in his ways, but that's a problem, I think. I just think it's a problem. Now, let's get back to the Citrus Bowl. Quarterback play in the Citrus Bowl. You and I both talked about this heading into the game. You asked me about who's going to start, because that was sort of a clickbait topic with Iowa media heading into the game. And I didn't mean to just laugh off the question, but I thought it was totally ridiculous that we were even having to discuss it and that people were falling for that debate. I told you the whole time it was going to be Spencer Petrus. There was no question about it in my mind, and I don't think there was any question about it in Kirk's mind or the offensive staff's mind. We saw Spencer Petrus start, never once left the field, Mark. Iowa did he have 3 points at halftime? I'd have to look back at the halftime score, but yeah, Iowa had 3 points at halftime, and we didn't see a change. Now, they did score some points. I give the running game most of the credit there. I thought the Williams, they're not brothers, but I almost want to call them brothers because, man, they run very similarly. LaShawn, I think, has a little bit of a burst that maybe Gavin doesn't have, but I think the running back room is in good shape. Again, you add a couple nice recruits next year, but the running game was good. Certainly, it looked like the offensive line improved during bowl prep, which isn't surprising. I know something we haven't mentioned is Hunter Norzad, the O-line transfer out of Cornell, released his top 5 yesterday. Iowa is included there with Virginia Tech, Penn State. I'm going to forget the other ones. Virginia Tech, Penn State, Illinois, and Auburn. So those are the other 4. But my point is the offensive line looked good against Kentucky, and you potentially add a guy like Hunter Norzad. Again, I'm not concerned about the offensive line. It sounds like David Davidkov is healthy now. He was a 4-star kid that came in last year. They've got personnel there to fill any gaps and for competition's sake. Again, we know the guys who are leaving. We suspect guys like Linderbaum are leaving. So yeah, I continue to say it. And the bowl, to me, the Citrus Bowl just affirmed this in my mind. The biggest position of need right now on this team is quarterback. And I said it to Don, and I know we've had people comment in the chat in past shows. I will not be surprised at all, Mark, if Alex Padilla transfers. In fact, I'll be a bit surprised if he doesn't. Because how would you feel if you were here in early 2020, and for one of the first times maybe the first time in Kirk Ferentz's head coaching tenure at Iowa, he announced the starter, basically endorsed the starter in January, which to me would already be a shot to my confidence, regardless of how young you are. You want to feel like if I really work my tail off and I perform well, I got a shot. And that kind of just shoots you. It shoots your confidence. And so, of course, he plays 2020, doesn't play well. We come into 2021. They compete in spring. They compete throughout fall camp. There's never a question that it's Spencer. Spencer doesn't play well most of the season, basically the entire season. Alex is inserted, plays just as well as Spencer, maybe even a little bit better if you look at his mobility. And what does Kirk do? But he continues to suggest that the only reason Alex is playing is because Spencer's banged up. And that happened game after game after game. And, then you have a bowl prep. And you would think the coaches are going to look at these quarterbacks' performances throughout the season and kind of reevaluate where they are, and where do we see our future at quarterback. And we're going to play that. You would think they'd play that guy with the higher upside in the bowl game. And not only did they not start Alex, they didn't give him a snap. So at some point, I won't be upset at all if Alex Padilla. I'll be upset at the fact that they're losing him, but I don't blame Alex Padilla for leaving. And that is the day and age we live in. The bad thing about it, Mark, is with so many quarterbacks in the portal, you wonder, can he find a home where he can start at the Power 5 level? I think that's a huge question mark, unfortunately. But I think he's got the upside to be able to compete for a job. And certainly, given the quarterback status here, I just think it's a shame that he was not rewarded for what he showed on the field during the regular season. And by rewarded, I mean get some time to prove himself in the bowl game.
So Kirk seems to be possibly getting to a situation where he's going to box himself into a corner by holding true to 2 of his tenets, and they're admirable to a certain extent, but he's loyal apparently to Spencer Petras, number 1. Number 2, he's anti-transfer portal. When I say anti, that might be a little bit strong, but I understand the reluctance, and I understand not wanting to change with the times and not liking where the times are going. But no one man,
you have no control.
Yes,
over the times.
You have to play. You're going to, put yourself and your program in a bad situation if you don't change with the times, and to align yourself with one quarterback who is clearly not the bad choice of words, but clearly not the better player, where there should be competition between the two, that you're driving Padilla away. And the points that you make seem to make total sense to me, that you're driving one of the 2 players away to align with a quarterback who's not proven to be a solid Power 5 quarterback, and then you're not going into the transfer portal to back yourself up to where you have another option. Right. They could be in a really bad spot.
Well, we already lost Deuce. Deuce is gone. Yeah. So, and he ain't coming back. Like, I know I haven't heard anything about potential schools. That didn't end well. At least it didn't appear to end well from the outside. And can we put up this comment from Eric B., Mark, this comment at 506, because this is a perfect example. We continue to talk about the quarterback position, and 2 or 3 weeks ago, the response may have been, and I heard it from some fans, a defending of Spencer Petras, saying, well, the line's not good enough. He's not getting time. Yes, he's not mobile, but for him to be successful, he needs time, so we need to improve the line. This, Eric, it kind of sums up what I've heard from most fans these past couple of weeks, especially since this bowl game, as the line has improved. And it didn't look good against Michigan, I'll acknowledge that, but it looked pretty good against Kentucky. And I don't remember pass protection being a real issue. I know they got home on that last interception, but I think that one was on Petras, to be completely honest. We watched that playback. But the fact of the matter is, it didn't really do anything. Like, exactly what Eric said. You're still missing open receivers. And again, it's not a shot to Petras. I know the columnist for the Des Moines Register came out with a story this week because Spencer brought up after the game how his mom has been subjected to having to read abusive tweets about Spencer, and that's not fair to his mom. And I agree with that. But Mark, a couple things I'd say in response to that. A, get off Twitter. If it's that toxic for you as the mother of a student athlete, just get off. It's not worth it. And B, shame on the people who are doing that. If I'm criticizing Spencer Petras, I'm not taking a personal shot at him or his character. I have no doubt he's a great human being. He's going to be very, very successful in life. But we're talking about who's the best person qualified to operate this offense. Perfect example, Drew Tate wasn't the most likable guy, I would say, in the locker room, but the dude was a gamer. And of course, the Citrus Bowl 2005 was a perfect example of that. So the fact of the matter is, regardless of who is more likable off the field, don't try telling me that there's this huge gap between Alex Padilla and Spencer Petras. That's ridiculous. And so I think it's sad that Alex Padilla didn't get even a chance in that bowl game to show what he's made of. And again, every time he was given a chance, his confidence was shot, because we're, like you said, Mark, we're trying to preserve confidence in Spencer Petras. We're trying to be loyal to Spencer by saying that, whoa, we're not starting Alex for any reason other than the fact that Spencer's hurt. Just imagine how you would feel as a backup quarterback when you work your tail off, and every time you do, the head coach comes out and says that. I just think it's sad. I don't think Kirk Ferentz means to take a shot at Alex Padilla, but there is such a thing of being loyal to a fault, and I think it could end up with Alex transferring.
Yeah, these positions are to be earned, and they're supposed to be competition. That seems to be something that most coaches lean on in talking about spring ball into August camp is competition breeds excellence. It makes players better to not know, okay, I got this spot, I'm going to put in my time, but I don't really need to develop or get any better. I've won the job. It's mine.
Mark, and this may have been misspoken by Spencer, but before the Big Ten championship game, a reporter asked Spencer about quarterback competition, how the competition was going. And Spencer basically said back, and I'm paraphrasing because I don't have the quote in front of me, but he basically said, we're not competing for spots this late in the season. That is a shocking statement. That should lay people out, Mark. That is so, and again, I'm going to give him and the program the benefit of the doubt that is just simply if that statement from Petras is true, and I want to give him the benefit of the doubt that it's not, and it was just misspoken on his part. But if that were somehow true, then there are serious issues with how we evaluate quarterbacks and maybe positions in general if these players aren't competing for spots throughout the season. I mean, your job is never safe. And that's what should, I mean, these kids, especially at quarterback, you're not trying to be better than the guy behind you. You're trying to be the best version of yourself. And if that's good enough to start, then you deserve to start. It shouldn't matter what point in the season we're in. And certainly with the struggles at quarterback, you would think it would be the opposite, that we would make it even more of a competition in December. So that was a troubling statement from Spencer earlier last month.
I'm going to throw out a wild theory that I don't believe to be true, but it's gone through my mind at some point in the last 5 minutes. So the level of quarterback play in college football has been raised significantly. These guys, especially in the last 10 to 15 years, number one, just the amount of throws in the game versus what the average team attempted just makes you a better quarterback by and large, makes the pool of quarterbacks better because they're throwing 30 and 35 and 50 times a game versus throwing 20 and 25 times a game. And I don't have the numbers in front of me, but we all know that teams are throwing the ball more than they were 15 years ago, number one. Number two, they're being prepared at a much higher rate earlier in their careers, as far back as junior high, but certainly into the high school ranks with all the camps and everything that goes on. The level of play, the level of skill throwing and catching the football in today's game is ridiculous. Okay, I'm just throwing this out as maybe Kirk, locked in his cocoon, analyzes and evaluates his quarterbacks as though it was 20 years ago and doesn't really recognize what's out there and what's being executed elsewhere.
Well, again, I mean, I don't know what mirror we have to bring into that facility, but we're not living in 1999 anymore. We're not living in 2002 anymore, and it's changed a lot since then. It's changed a lot in the last couple of years, but it's changed a lot since then. And the other thing I would say, when you look at how Kirk likes to operate, his, if you want to call it stubbornness, but his old school personality as it relates to basically everything in that program has for the most part worked, and it continues to work. I mean, they did just win 10 games. And so it doesn't mean you have to change how you operate completely, but certainly one large aspect of it, the offense and evaluating offensive talent and recruiting offensive talent and utilizing the portal for offensive talent, that does need to change. And that's my opinion. He may argue that. I think the results are pretty clear. But you're right. It's unfortunate, if you want to call it a cocoon. I hope that spring comes early and that butterfly hatches, Mark, because we need something bold and beautiful to kind of tamper down there's some animosity in the fan base right now with 10 wins, which is sad, but I understand it because, again, you can win 10 games and get to the West Championship. There are always going to be people that say that's not enough. We got to win a title, got to make the playoff. That's just the day and age we live in. And I think Iowa, it's also it's ultra frustrating because, again, we go back to those units, the defense and special teams, which are championship ready right now, Mark.